What if I told you that the most boring open world game ever made is actually one of the greatest video games of all time? That's Mafia II, a game set in a detailed open world that it refuses to use. No typical open world side quests or map activities demanding your attention. No meaningless filler to bloat the game's duration. Just a beautifully crafted city and story that will stay with you long after the credits roll. In a genre obsessed with quantity, Mafia II chose quality. And that choice makes it a masterpiece. Let me explain why you need to play it. World War II is over. America is basking in the glow of victory. Prosperity is on the horizon, and the American dream is supposedly within everyone's reach. But for Vito Scaletta, a young Italian-American veteran, that dream feels like a cruel joke. He's returned from the battlefields of Europe not as a hero, but as a debt-ridden nobody struggling to keep his family afloat. And in a world where opportunity is scarce, the only place that seems to welcome him with open arms is the criminal underworld. That's the premise of Mafia II, but to call it simply a game about gangsters would be a profound disservice. It's a towering achievement in video game storytelling, a meticulously crafted, emotionally resonant epic that trades mindless chaos for character-driven drama. It's a game that takes the open world formula and bends it to serve a singular, powerful narrative. Today, we're going to explore exactly what makes Mafia II a masterpiece, why its legacy endures over a decade after its initial release, and why, despite its age and technical quirks, you absolutely need to experience it. So, put on your finest suit, pour yourself a drink, and let's take a trip back in time to Empire Bay. Let's start with the biggest player in this drama, the place where it all unfolds, Empire Bay. This is not just a map with points of interest. It's a meticulously crafted world that feels lived in, authentic, and oppressive. While other cities contributed by adding texture, variety, and a sense of scale, New York City is the foundation upon which it's built. Every detail has been considered. The cars are beautifully recreated vintage models, each with its own handling and charm. The fashion, from the double-breasted suits to the fedoras, screams post-war style. The architecture ranges from Art Deco skyscrapers to humble brick tenements, giving each neighborhood a distinct identity. Even the advertisements on the billboards feel ripped from a history book. But more than just the visuals, it's the atmosphere that captivates. The game is cleverly split into two distinct seasons. The first several chapters unfold during the harsh winter of 1945, where the streets are blanketed in snow and every exhale is visible. The crunch of your shoes on the pavement, the way your car struggles to gain traction on icy roads, it creates a palpable sense of harshness and hardship that mirrors Vito's own struggles. Then, as the story progresses into the summer of 1951, the city transforms. The snow melts, the sun beats down, and a sense of restless energy fills the air. The sweltering heat becomes a character in itself, amplifying the tension of the mob war that's brewing. This seasonal shift is one of the game's most brilliant artistic choices, subtly reinforcing the narrative's emotional and thematic arcs. The true magic of Empire Bay lies not in its scale, but in its restraint. Unlike typical open-world games that are loaded with minigames and side quests, Empire Bay refuses to offer cheap distractions. You're like the protagonist in a mafia film, following the story as its chapters unfold through cinematic cutscenes. It's your sole focus, immersion over diversion. There are two sets of hidden collectibles, but that's it. This focus on immersion is what elevates the experience. You'll find yourself just driving through the city, taking in the sights, listening to the radio, and feeling like you're actually there. It's a testament to the developers at 2K Czech that they created a world so rich, so detailed, that simply inhabiting it is a joy in itself. And into this beautifully crafted world steps Vito Scaletta. He is, in many ways, the quintessential tragic hero. He's not a power-hungry psychopath, nor is he a saint. He's just a man who made a series of bad choices in the pursuit of a better life. When we meet Vito, he's fresh out of the military, having fought bravely for his country. But the America he fought for doesn't seem to want him back. His father is dead, his mother is sick, and the family is drowning in debt. He's a victim of a system that promised him everything and delivered nothing. Enter Joe Barbaro. Joe is Vito's best friend, his confidant, and ultimately his greatest weakness. Where Vito is thoughtful and reserved, Joe is impulsive and loud. Joe sees the mob not just as a way to make money, but as a legitimate path to respect and power. He drags Vito back into a life he swore he'd left behind, convincing him that they can make it together. Their friendship is the emotional core of the game, a tragic bond forged in desperation and shattered by the brutal realities of the life they chose. What follows is a sprawling narrative that charts Vito's journey from petty theft to becoming deeply, fatally entangled with empire-based crime families. It's a story told in chapters, each one feeling like an episode of a premium HBO drama. We see the highs, the money, the women, the power, the intoxicating feeling of being a made man. But we also see the brutal lows, the betrayals, the violence, the paranoia, and the creeping realization that the mob is less a brotherhood and more a business that will discard you the moment you become a liability. The writing is sharp, the dialogue is authentic, and the voice acting is phenomenal. You feel every ounce of Vito's frustration, his joy, and his deep, growing regret. The game explores themes of loyalty, duty, and the devastating cost of the American dream. It asks profound questions. Can you escape the life you were born into? Who can you trust? Can you stake your life on friendship? And its answers tend to be as heartbreaking as they are honest. The story doesn't glorify the mob. It doesn't paint them as cool anti-heroes. It shows them for what they are. Dangerous, flawed, and ultimately tragic figures trapped in a cycle of violence and greed. It's arguably one of the best stories ever told in a video game. Now let's take a moment to appreciate where the DNA of this story actually comes from. Mafia II is not just inspired by classic mob movies, it wears its influences on its impeccably tailored sleeve. It's essentially an interactive love letter to the golden age of American crime cinema. The most obvious influence is Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas, the structure of the game, showing the rise and fall of a mobster, complete with voice-over narration, mirrors Henry Hill's story beat for beat. Vito's relationship with Joe is a direct parallel to Henry's friendship with Tommy DeVito. Then you have The Godfather, the themes of family loyalty and the solemn ritual of becoming a made man. The power struggle you see between the Vinci, Falcone and Clementi families in the game mirrors the real-life power struggles between the 5 families of New York, particularly the Genovese and Luciano family. The post-war setting isn't just aesthetic, it's historical. Vito's story is the story of thousands of real men who came back from war to find that the country they fought for still saw them as others. The game doesn't lecture you on this, but it breathes this historical context through every pore, adding a layer of tragic realism that most crime games utterly ignore. Now let's talk about how you actually play Mafia II. While the story is the main attraction, the gameplay is the vehicle that drives it forward. And it's important to understand what this game is not. It's not a sandbox. It's not Grand Theft Auto, and that's a good thing. The driving is weighty and grounded. Cars feel like heavy machines, not bumper cars. You feel the momentum as you slide around corners, and you feel the consequences of reckless driving. This isn't a game where you can just weave through traffic at 100 miles per hour without a care in the world. The streets feel busy, and the police are constantly watching. It forces you to slow down, to pay attention, and to appreciate the city you're driving through. And then there's the police system. This is where Mafia II truly separates itself from the competition. Committing a crime has tangible consequences. Speeding over the limit, you'll get a fine. Hit a pedestrian, you'll get a wanted level. The police are a constant presence, and they don't just forget about you if you drive around the block. If you get caught for a minor offense, you can usually bribe the officer to look the other way. This simple mechanic grounds the experience and the game's core themes. Money is power. Money is freedom. And in Empire Bay, if you have enough of it, you can make even the law bend to your will. The combat is similarly straightforward. It's a cover-based shooter, reminiscent of games like Gears of War. It's not the most complex system, but it's punchy, visceral, and satisfying. The sound design is excellent, with each gunshot echoing through the streets. The AI, while occasionally dated, is competent enough to provide a challenge. While a stealth system exists, it sees little use in the game. In the overwhelming part, you simply go loud, or have to escape from pursuit. So stealth, check, but definitely not a stealth game. One of the more controversial aspects of the game is its limited side content. You can buy clothes, guns and ammunition, or rob those stores. You can eat to restore health. But there are no property management minigames, no taxi driving side missions, and no stock market to play. Some saw this as a negative, but in reality it's a design choice that prioritizes focus and immersion. Mafia II is a game that respects your time. It doesn't pad its runtime with menial, repetitive tasks, unless you hate driving. Instead, it guides you along a tightly scripted, expertly paced narrative. Every mission feels like it matters, driving the story forward and developing the characters. The game is about 10 to 12 hours long, and it's all killer, no filler. Before we move on to the game's legacy, we have to talk about the music. The soundtrack of Mafia II is an absolute masterpiece. It's not just a collection of old songs, it's a carefully curated time capsule that transports you directly to post-war America. There are several in-game radio stations, each dedicated to a different style of music. They feature an incredible selection of period-authentic music, spanning jazz, blues, swing, and early rock and roll, plus some news, ads, and radio DJ banter. This adds a great deal of authenticity and atmosphere, very similar to radio stations and Fallout games. And let's not forget the voice acting. The cast is phenomenal, bringing these characters to life and giving each distinct personality and depth. Rick Pasqualone does a credible job as Vito, capturing his weariness and his drive. Robert Costanzo is absolutely unforgettable as Joe, delivering every line with manic energy and surprising vulnerability. And then there's Sonny Marinelli, who brings a quiet, self-assured menace to Henry Tomasino, another fan favorite besides Joe. The entire cast feels like they stepped out of a classic gangster film, and their performances are a huge reason why the story is so compelling. The game's original release was in 2010. In 2020, the Mafia trilogy was released. This included a re-release of Mafia II as the Definitive Edition. This version includes all previously released DLC, including Jimmy's Vendetta and Joe's Adventures, and features upgraded textures, improved lighting, and performance enhancements, as well as some exclusive new bugs. Visually, the Definitive Edition holds up well. The textures and lighting breathe life into Empire Bay, making it look almost like a modern title. The character models, while not as detailed as today's standards, still carry the emotion and weight of the performances. However, it's not without its issues. The Definitive Edition has been plagued by various technical problems since launch, including frame rate drops, visual glitches, and occasional crashes. These issues are more prevalent on lower-end hardware, but even on powerful PCs and consoles, you may encounter some hiccups. It's a shame, because a truly polished re-release could have solidified the game's legacy even further. Critical reception upon release was overwhelmingly positive, with praise directed at its story, atmosphere, and characters. However, it was often criticized for its linearity and lack of side content, as some reviewers expected a Grand Theft Auto clone. But in the years since its release, the game's reputation has only grown. It's now widely regarded as a cult classic, a hidden gem that prioritizes narrative over gameplay gimmicks. It's a game that gamers are constantly discovering and falling in love with. Here's something that adds a fascinating layer to the game's history: the sheer amount of content that was cut during development. Originally, Mafia II was envisioned as a much more ambitious project, featuring a more dynamic open world, deeper systems, and more ways to interact with Empire Bay. Early design documents and leftover game files reveal a wealth of features that never made it into the final release. Some of the cuts were about immersion. There was supposed to be a fully functional public transport system, taxis, buses, and even a metro system, but it was cut due to memory constraints. You were originally able to buy a gun license from Giuseppe, but that feature was removed. A respect and reputation system would have changed how Empire Bay reacted to Vito based on his choices, and resisting arrest would have triggered a foot chase rather than immediate lethal force. Others were about fun. There were plans for a fight club where Vito could earn money, and even dog races to bet on. These were meant to give players more ways to engage with the world beyond the main story, but they didn't make the final cut. The story itself was trimmed down significantly. At one point, the game had 4 different endings, but playtesters only liked one, so the developers cut the other 3 and focused on making that single ending as strong as possible. Characters like Charlie Lopez, who would have given Vito's side missions, were cut from the main game, though some of his content was later repurposed as DLC. Another character, Monique, was intended to be a romantic interest, with planned theater dates that never made it into the final game. Even the arsenal wasn't safe from the chopping block. The M14 rifle was fully modeled and ready to go, until someone pointed out it wasn't adopted until 1959, nearly a decade after the game's setting. And the German Model 24 potato masher grenade was meant to be a usable weapon, but honestly, outside of a few illicit war souvenirs smuggled back by GIs, where would a mobster in 1950s America find a German stick grenade? The reasons for the cuts are numerous, ranging from technical limitations of the PS3 and Xbox 360 to publisher deadlines and budget constraints. The game was in development for over 6 years, and the studio, 2K Czech, faced immense pressure to get it shipped. The result was a game that was streamlined, but arguably for the best. Many of these cut features have since been restored by modders. The Final Cut mod, for example, adds back the metro system, cut dialogue, new locations, and even hints at an alternative ending. The cuts, while disappointing in hindsight, helped focus the narrative and create a more polished experience. It left us wondering what could have been, but also grateful for what we got. Now let's talk about the bad things. Let's talk about DLC. Apart from some purely cosmetic ones, there are 2 flavors of content DLC. The first 2 are the Betrayal of Jimmy and Jimmy's Vendetta. Those tell next to no story about some bald guy called Jimmy and completely focus on open world activities. This is basically content that was cut because it didn't fit with the immersive story approach and wasn't very good to begin with. It uses the same assets but otherwise has nothing to do with the main game. Transforms the map into a somewhat basic open world game. Now Joe's Adventures, the third and last DLC, puts the spotlight on Joe Barbaro. We finally learn what happened to Joe during those years Vito is absent from Empire Bay, and get to experience it firsthand from Joe's point of view. Sounds great, right? And it starts strong. Main story-style mission with extensive cutscenes, just playing as Joe this time. Problem is, the fun doesn't last. After that mission, it switches to open world mode just like Jimmy's DLCs. Looks like the devs wanted to do a real quality content DLC, but at some point ran out of time and money and completed it with some weak source filler. So it's not all done like Jimmy's meager offerings, but it's unfinished business at this point. Still nice to have a few of the missing pieces of the main story filled in. Makes sense those open world offerings and Joe's spotty story fragments are kept in quarantine. Vito's story is set in a sprawling open world reduced to a superb backdrop, because the focus is on immersion, on telling a captivating tale where random silly map activities just wouldn't fit in. But in case you do want them, Jimmy is your man, whoever the hell he is. And Joe, well, I'm happy for the good content that DLC adds. The rest, forget about it. So, after all of this, let's return to the central question. Why should you play Mafia II? First, the story. In an era of bloated open-world games filled with meaningless filler, Mafia II offers a tight, focused, and emotionally resonant narrative that will stay with you long after the credits roll. It's a story about choices, about loyalty, and about the crushing weight of the American dream. It's the kind of story that makes you reflect on your own life and the decisions you've made. Second, the atmosphere. Empire Bay is one of the most immersive and beautifully realized game worlds ever created. It's a place you want to lose yourself in, to drive around and simply absorb. The attention to detail, the period-accurate music, the seasonal changes, it all adds up to an experience that feels authentic and alive. Then there's the voice acting. The cast is phenomenal, but Robert Costanzo as Joe Barbaro steals the show. His delivery is pitch perfect, loud, reckless, and surprisingly vulnerable. You believe every word, every outburst, every moment of loyalty. He makes Joe feel like a real person, not just a character. It's one of the most underrated performances in gaming. And the gameplay, while simpler than some of its contemporaries, is satisfying, functional, and always serves the story. The weighty driving, the punchy combat, and the reactive police system all combine to create a cohesive and enjoyable experience. It's a game that knows exactly what it wants to be and executes it flawlessly. Finally, accessibility. The Definitive Edition makes it easier than ever to experience this classic. It's available on PS4, Xbox One, PC and even next-gen consoles via backward compatibility. It's often on sale for a very reasonable price, making it a low-risk investment for a high-reward experience. And with all DLCs bundled in, you get the complete picture of Vito and Joe's saga, as well as the open-world expansions. Truly an offer you can't refuse. So here's the truth. Mafia II isn't perfect. It has bugs, cut content, and dated mechanics. It's an open world housing a linear game. But it's also one of the most honest, heartbreaking, and immersive games ever made. And in a world where every game wants to waste your time with filler, Mafia II respects you enough to tell you a story that matters. If you're a fan of crime dramas, of cinematic storytelling, or simply of great video games, do yourself a favor and step into the shoes of Vito Scaletta. Take a drive through Empire Bay, listen to the jazz on the radio, and experience one of the most unforgettable journeys gaming has to offer. Play it, you won't regret it. Thank you for watching this deep dive into Mafia II. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell so you don't miss any future content, and keep your kneecaps safe. I upload quite a lot. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the game. Have you played Mafia II? What did you think of the story? Who was your favorite character? Let me know in the comments below. Stay safe out there and keep gaming.